Hello, YouTube. Once again, this is your girl, Kendra D, aka KD, aka DJ Fish Grease. Keeping that one. And I'm coming to you again sooner than I thought. I guess I like this YouTube thing more than I thought I would. But I was gonna do another subject, and at this point, I don't remember what. But I started searching and Googling different images and different things that I could put on the video to, just create the video. But while I was looking at these things, I ran across some imagery, and really it was a poem. And I don't know who wrote this poem. I don't know who to credit for it, but I ran across it and it changed the whole trajectory of my thought, and I thought I need to make a video concerning this issue. So with that being said, I am going to read this out to you, and then I'll comment about it. And the poem is entitled The Strong Black Woman. While struggling with the reality of being a human instead of a myth, the strong black woman passed away. Medical sources say she died of natural causes, but those who knew her know she died from being silent when she should have been screaming, smiling when she should have been raging, from being sick and not wanting anyone to know because her pain might inconvenience them. She died from an overdose of other people clinging to her when she didn't even have energy for herself. She died from loving men who didn't love themselves and could only offer her a crippled reflection. She died from raising children alone. She died from the lies her grandmother told her mother, and her mother told her about life, men, and racism. She died from being sexually abused as a child and having to take that truth everywhere she went, every day of her life, exchanging the humiliation for guilt and back again. She died from asphyxiation, from secrets she kept trying to burn away instead of allowing herself the kind of nervous breakdown she was entitled to, but only white girls could afford. She died from being responsible because she was the last rung on the ladder and there was no one under her she could dump on. The strong black woman is dead. She died from being dragged down and sat upon by unevolved women posing as sisters and friends. She died from tolerating Mr. Pitiful just to have a man around the house. She died from sacrificing herself for everybody and everything when what she really wanted to do was be a singer, a dancer, or some magnificent other. She died from lies of omission because she didn't want to bring the black man down. She died from myths that would not allow her to show weakness without being chastised by the lazy and hazy. She died from hiding her real feelings until they became hard and bitter enough to invade her womb and breasts like angry tumors. She died from never being enough of what men wanted or being too much for the men she wanted. She died from being too black and died again for not being black enough. She died from being misinformed about her mind, her body, and the extent of her royal capabilities. She died from knees pressed too close together because respect was never part of the foreplay that was being shoved at her. And sometimes when she refused to die, when she just refused to give in, she was killed by the lethal images of blonde hair, blue eyes, and flat butts being rejected by the OJs, the Quincy's, the Cubas, and the Kobes. Sometimes she was stomped to death by racism and sexism, executed by high tech ignorance while she carried the family in her belly, the community on her head, and the race on her back. The strong black woman is dead. Or is she? Mm. Now, I would like to take a moment, if I will, and play the world's smallest violin for that piece. Why? Why am I playing the world's smallest violin? Because pity parties don't deserve an orchestra. They deserve a microscopic violin to be the backdrop music for them. Because this poem, as well as some of the quotes that are going to show up in this video that you can read from feminists, particularly white ones, this is replete with references to and about several things that black women suffer from even today. And I don't know when this poem was written. I don't have any information. I tried to look for it. I didn't really find any information to it, or about it rather. But whoever wrote it had to be a black woman. This is delusional in many cases. It's a delusion that is equal to being locked in a padded cell with a straitjacket on, and you paint the ceiling like the sky and you paint a sun on it, and then you paint the walls like a rolling meadow. And that's the equivalent to the level of delusion that this poem paints. Because several things wrong with it. And I want to start with that second stanza. She died from loving men who didn't love themselves and could only offer her a crippled reflection. She died from raising children alone. And I'm going to stop right there because that is what that puts words to the underlying contempt that black women as a collective feel for the collective of black men. That actually puts words to it. Men who didn't love themselves, because it is assumed that black men don't love themselves, and could only offer her a crippled reflection. Now keep in mind, typically, women are the reflections of men, and not necessarily the other way around. If a man is the sun, then the woman would be the moon. The moon does not cast a light of its own, but it does reflect the light of the sun, thereby making it visible, even bright at times. Now, one could argue that a couple are reflections of each other, and I'll give you that. I'll give you that. But that is what they think about black men, that they are crippled. Likely, this points to an emotional crippling. And she died from raising children alone. Now think about that. If the qualities of such a woman as being described in this poem, if there is a woman like this, why isn't she attracting a man? And furthermore, why is she raising children alone? Where is the father of these children? Because one would think that this kind of woman is a gem, okay, a rock of ages, a diamond in the rough, okay. This is a treasure beyond all treasures, the Ark of the Covenant, the Holy Grail of women. Okay, one would think she's got all of these selfless qualities about her. And you mean to tell me that there isn't a man around that would appreciate a selfless woman? A woman who is ready to give of herself wholeheartedly to her family and to her community. And that's interesting that a strong black woman, even in a poem that is supposed to exalt such a woman, has her raising children by herself. Interesting. And the onus is actually put on the man because he doesn't love himself. Didn't even mention about him loving her or not. Okay. The third stanza is also rather interesting. She died from asphyxiation, from secrets she kept trying to burn away, instead of allowing herself the kind of nervous breakdown she was entitled to, but only white girls could afford. We'll stop right there. Only white girls could afford it, huh? This speaks to and puts words to the myth of white womanhood, that white women have a station of femininity and a space where they can be vulnerable, and their men allow them that space to be vulnerable, and these white women have it and black women do not have that space. And let's dig a little deeper. Why don't they have that space? Why don't they think they have that space? They don't think they have that space because they don't believe that black men as a collective of men have A, their best interests at heart, and B, they do not believe that the black man has ever or is capable of protecting them. Okay? Because we know that one of the base functions of men is that they maintain and they protect women and children, specifically the women and children of their group or of their family. This is one of, not the sum totality of a man, but this is one of the things that he does. Okay. So black women do not believe and have not believed for quite a while now that black men are capable of protecting them from anything, any threat, perceived or real, and that they have no desire to do the same. So she is not allowed to, here she's saying she's not allowed to have a nervous breakdown that she's entitled to. Now, what's going on that you're having this nervous breakdown. And I'm not saying you can't, that nobody can have a nervous breakdown, certain things hit you, and we're women and we get emotional, and sometimes it becomes too much and we will sort of break down. But that's not really what this is talking about. This is talking about not about a personal situation where a woman may actually have some sort of breakdown, or she might suffer from some sort of emotional instability. We're talking about a collective of women suffering from whatever kind of nervous breakdown they think they are entitled to have, and that they can't have it because Black men don't provide the environment by which they can be vulnerable in the same way that white men provide, or are said to provide, this same comfort to their white women. And it says but only white girls could afford. She died from being responsible because she was the last rung on the ladder and there was no one under her she could dump on. Now, what does this say? She's being responsible. So if she's being responsible, who isn't being responsible? Who isn't in the equation? Let's solve for X. Who isn't being responsible? If there's only the man and the woman is being responsible, and she's the only one, she's the last one, she's the safety net, then, and all the responsibility is falling to her, then that means that her male counterpart is not responsible. He's irresponsible. That's what that means. He's being irresponsible. And therefore, she has to take up the responsibilities. Now, this is going to be fleshed out later on in the poem also. Okay? Now, nowhere is it saying that she's being a support system. If men are responsible for the maintenance and the protection, then women are responsible for being the support system. Where do we find, just a quick, before I go on to the next stanza, where do you find support systems? Here's what I mean. Let me clarify. When something is supporting something else, let's take a building, for example, a home. Let's take a home. A home is supported by what? Its foundation. Okay. Where is the foundation of a home found? A foundation of a home is typically, I've yet to see a home with the foundation anywhere other than the bottom of it. It's the foundation. It's the first thing you do after you level the ground and you prepare the ground to lay a foundation for a home. The foundation is the first thing you get into order. It's the first thing you get into order. You make certain that this foundation is proper for the structure that you are going to put on top of it. You want to make sure that this foundation is strong enough, solid enough to actually hold the weight of the home that you are going to build on top of this foundation. The foundation of an ice cream cone is what? The cone. It is found underneath the scoops of ice cream. Otherwise, you'll have scoops of ice cream in your hand without the cone. Okay? It's found on the bottom of the ice cream scoop. Okay? Are you getting where I'm going with this? Usually a support is found either underneath whatever it is holding up, or it is found behind whatever it is propping up. Okay? So if you have a ladder and you lean it against a tree, the tree is now propping up the ladder. It is behind this ladder. It is holding up and supporting the ladder. I've never heard foundations complain about being foundations. Usually, a strong foundation is something to be quite proud of. If you're an engineer or what have you, and you're building something and you build a solid foundation, that's usually something to be proud of. Even when you're building something abstract like a software system. Let's take Apple's software system. The Mac OS is a Unix. And I'm getting into geek stuff, bear with me. That Unix type system is solid. It is a foundation upon which several generations of Mac OSs have been built. Okay? Apple is quite proud of that foundation. They don't ridicule it. They don't, it's at the bottom, so it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters are the pretty graphics and the stability of a Mac. But why is a Mac stable? Because the foundational software is stable. Unlike Windows 10 sometimes. But I digress. Now, we move on. She died from being dragged down and sat upon by unevolved women posing as sisters and friends. And here's the thing here. She died from tolerating Mr. Pitiful just to have a man around the house. And before I comment, the ending of that stanza says, she died from lies of omission because she didn't want to bring the black man down. Wah, wah. So sad. Isn't that so sad? Isn't that such a woe is me? Every reference to men in this poem, mind you, is a sorry reference to a man. These men that are being referenced, these abstract men who are being referenced in this poem, these are some horrible type of men. Okay, they're emotionally crippled and broken. They're pitiful. Okay, they're so delicate that any kind of thing that you don't, that's what she means by lies of omission. She means she's not telling him certain things, or she's withholding certain things that she feels about him just so he's not torn down by the truth of how she really feels about him. That's what she's saying. For those of you who need some clarification on what she means by she died from lies of omission, she's the one omitting. Okay, she's the one omitting the truth and therefore lying by omission. Okay, and the truth that she is omitting is how she really feels about her black man. And she's omitting this truth so-called because she doesn't want to bring the black man down, which indicates that what she feels actually would bring the black man down, or her opinion of his emotional stability is so low that she feels as though whatever she says would break him. That is what she is saying. Okay. And she has tolerated. Now, when you tolerate something, that means you don't really want it there. You wouldn't have sought it out. Had you been able to find something else, you would have done something else, or you would have found or dealt with something else. But for now, you're tolerating it. Okay? You don't prefer to have it. It's just sort of there by default, and You know you don't really like it, but the alternative isn't so much better. So you just kind of deal with this Mr. Pitiful that she is referring to. Now, again, if this woman is so wonderful, why is she either attracting emotionally crippled men, no man, because she's raising children alone, don't forget that part, and or she's attracting this pitiful scrub of a dude. Okay, this man is barely nothing. Okay, he's barely nothing. AKA he's sex. That's why she's tolerating. That's what she doesn't say in the poem. She's tolerating him and he's Mr. Pitiful, but he gives her nice big doses of vitamin D, wink wink. You know what I'm saying? And that is why she's quote unquote tolerating him. Okay. Moving on. Now this part, this next stanza, the fifth one, I'm gonna jump right to like the middle towards the end, where she says she died from never being enough of what men wanted or being too much for the men she wanted. That's interesting because here she's saying she died from never being enough of what men wanted. So she's not a preferred woman as she feels. She feels she's not preferred. Okay? She feels as though she is not the first choice woman. Okay? For the men that she's got her eye on. Now, what's interesting is what man is she got her eye on? Because her previous references to black men, and we know that she was talking about black men because she said they're a reflection of her. So she was talking about black men when they were pitiful and they were emotionally broken and they left her raising kids by herself and all of these woe is me types of things. And she's tolerating him. And then she died from never being enough of what men wanted. Now, what men, if black men are being tolerated, now what's this man, who's this other man that she really wants that doesn't want her because she is not good enough or she does not carry the qualities that this other man would actually value or see as something that he would want? But wait, Kendra, hold up. Now, this is a poem about a strong black woman, correct? That's what I thought. Okay, and such a woman should be the epitome of what any man would desire in his life. But she's not enough, for what men want, or she's too much for the men she wanted. Now this goes into this is kind of the crux of being a strong black woman. You've heard it before, and ladies, you've said it before. Well, if I'm too strong for him, he just don't know how to handle a strong black woman. It's such nonsense. It's nonsense. Okay. She died from being too black. What's too black? And died again for not being black enough. So being too black, okay, is probably for that man she wants, that's unnamed. Okay. Also, being too black for whom? Too black for what? Okay. We're gonna get a hint about what she's too black for on the next stanza. And I'm gonna go all the way down to this. And sometimes when she refused to die, when she just refused to give in, she was killed. Now that is violent, being killed. It's different from just dying, because you can die from natural causes, but killed, okay, killed implies that there is a violence being foisted, if you will, upon her person, and it is lethal. Okay, but what killed her? Lethal images. These images are lethal now, mind you. They've killed her. They've killed her. Notice what killed her: a white woman. Okay, all right, stay with me now. A white woman has killed her. All right, the images of a white woman. Now, if we go back, that's what she means by she's too black. Okay, because when you are black, what can't you do? When you are a black woman, you can't live up to, by any successful means or measure, the Eurocentric standard of beauty. What is the Eurocentric standard of beauty? She says so. Blonde hair, blue eyes, and flat butts, although they're getting fixed with flat booties now. So they're not so flat. You get a white woman, she either putting fixed or flat in her butt, or she's got a workout butt. They're trying to get booties now. So y'all hood rats, and not even just the hood rats. I'm not even gonna put this on just the hood rats, because this goes from the hood rat all the way up to the upper echelon of black women. This has nothing to do with her social economic status. Okay, so she's killed by first the Eurocentric standard of beauty, which means that she is not accepting herself. She's so strong that she's not accepting herself. And being rejected by the OJs, here the OJ means OJ Simpson, the Quincy's, I'm guessing she means the Quincy Jones, so I don't know how old this is. The Cubas, this got to really be old, because he ain't been hot in a long time. And the Kobe's. Okay, so all of these men are successful in their own right, black men, except for maybe Cuba. Okay, Julia had some type of acting career, but come on now. Now, OJ was what? Successful football player. He was a successful running back. Okay. Quincy Jones, a successful music producer. Cuba Gooding Jr., an actor, and Kobe Bryant, a 5-time champion basketball player for the LA Lakers. Okay. So all successful black men, and they did not choose her. Apparently, they chose white women, okay, over her. Okay. Okay, and then the last one, sometimes she was stomped to death by racism and sexism. Now, racism, we all know about. It's the sexism in this context. Sexism by who? Who is practicing sexism on a black woman? Okay. It's not black men. She'll probably blame black men for that, but if there's any sexism going on, then that's going to be done by white men, because white men control the places where a black woman would actually work, or places where she would go that some man has control over. Okay, and usually she doesn't come out of her community to do anything other than work. So this is sexism in the workplace. And 9 times out of 10, she's not going to be an entrepreneur. She's probably going to be an employee somewhere, regardless of whether she's at entry level or she's running the place where she works. So that's where the sexism is coming in at. While she carried the family in her belly. Okay. You're a woman, you're pregnant. Okay. The community on her head and the race, the entire collective of black people on her back. Now let's look at that for a moment. And you know, I'm talking to you ladies. I'm always kind of talking to you because the men, I'm kind of preaching to the choir when I talk to them. I'm talking to you. You and this image, this diluted little image that you have about your place and about your role and what it has been and what you think it is. To carry the community on your head and race on your back, if you are carrying a community on your head and the entire race on your back, you're implying that you're carrying your man. So he's not doing his job. So that's like the 5th or 6th reference to black men not being on the ball. Okay? And if you have been carrying the entire structure, just you, then how is it that you are now not responsible for the condition that it is in? Riddle me that, Batman. If you have been captaining, then you've been and leading, then you're responsible. Don't captains go down with the ship? Because I remember watching the Titanic, and that guy, the captain, I forgot his name, that he went down with the ship. He didn't quite want to do it. He was scared, but he went down with that ship because captains go down with the ship. Why do captains go down with the ship? Because they feel it is their responsibility. They cannot abandon their post, especially in a failure situation. Now, with the current condition of the black community, I would say we're failing. We're certainly not succeeding in any meaningful way. We're struggling a lot with many different issues and problems. We've got problems with white supremacy on our necks, and we have interpersonal issues as well. So if you've been the head of all of this shit, why is it so fucked up? If the men ain't shit, which this poem is replete with men ain't shit, and the black woman is all, and she's been doing everything, you know, by the sweat of her brow, and finally the stress of it killed her, then why is it in such shambles? Because we're in shambles, and if you've been carrying it, then we have no other choice than to look to you for answers as to how did you let it get out of control? But when we look to you for the answers, all of a sudden you recall that men are supposed to lead the community. Oh, well. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Now all of a sudden you understand the dynamic between men and women, so that you no longer have any accountability when you look around at the destruction and the disarray and the mayhem that is the black community, that you, by your own admission, have been leading and carrying on your back. When we look at it, And then we look to you to say, well, you've been in charge of it. How is it that you let it get to this? Then all of a sudden you become a vulnerable, hapless, helpless female who has only ever tried to raise her children and her man has abandoned her. Oh my God. You turn into the white girl you think you want to be. And you start blaming and wagging your finger at the black man. Well, you were supposed to be leading. No, bitch, you was leading. Right? I mean, did I read that wrong? Or maybe I have reading comprehension problems. I never thought I did, but maybe I do. Maybe in my old dotage, I no longer can read. I don't know. But you gotta stop this nonsense. This strong black woman nonsense. And if you're reading some of the quotes that have come across the screen, I've tried to make it where they're there long enough for you to read. You'll see that this feminism shit, this is not for you, black woman. That is for white women. You have no business over there with them with that. They are scrapping and struggling to get a seat at the table with their men to collectively stand on your neck. Meanwhile, you are scrabbling for this same so-called recognition all the while it is doing nothing more than tearing down the very fabric and fibers of the black community, because the family structure has been killed. And we are women, so it is up to us now to correct the home. Civilizations and the success of a civilization is dependent upon the communities that form that civilization. And the success and stability of any community is the building block known as the family structure. When the family structure is incomplete or otherwise weakened and compromised, it becomes easy, very easy, to simply destroy such a community. Because there is no line of defense to stop such destruction. So you wearing the badge of single motherhood as though it is an accomplishment, when in reality, unless you are a widow or, a divorce was just not avoidable or something, and you just ended up a single mom, it wasn't because you just were willy-nilly having children out of wedlock or out of any sort of agreement with a man, and you just were having them and whatever. Unless you fall into certain categories where women could end up as single mothers despite the choices that they make, then you are contributing to the problem. It's not a badge of honor. Fantasia had that song years ago. B-A-B-Y-M-A-M-A. This goes out to all the baby mamas. That was some bullshit. And it was a lot of y'all parading around that song and gathering around that song when really you should have been holding your head in shame that you have brought whole human beings into the world bereft of their fathers. And you care nothing to supply and secure a home, a stable home in which to raise your progeny. That is not an accomplishment. That strong black woman BS has destroyed you. They fed you that plate of nonsense and you ate it, and now they're standing back looking at you like look at them. Look at those women over there. Oh, they're such horrible women. Oh gosh. Look at those women. Look at those animals. Look at them. They're loud. You know, they're constantly having weaves on and wigs on, and look how they talk to their men. Look how they behave with their men. Look how they act with their children. Oh my gosh. That's what they stand back and look at you and say. Meanwhile, you're towing the feminist line. Never once have white women come to your defense. Ever. But you joined up with them to rid yourself of your blackness and the status that came with your blackness in this country. To the point where you do not care what happens to your children and you don't care what happens to your man. Drop it. Drop it. If we don't come to the table with each other, black men and black women, we will be crushed, completely annihilated, with no hope of recovery. Because we are women, or we supposed to be women. And we are responsible for home. We are responsible for home. And the home is on fire. And we are too apathetic to spit on it to put it out. And that's the end. I'll talk to y'all later.